Mary? Mary? Mary, are you awake? You wanted me to wake you before sunrise.
Thank you, John. I'm awake. I don't think I slept any last night. I'm too tired to sleep.
Well, why don't you eat something? You need to take care of yourself.
I'm not hungry.
Mary, you've been this way the past 2 days. Now, I know you're upset about what happened to Jesus. We all are. But you can't go on like this. There's nothing you can do that will bring your son back. Jesus is dead. The Romans made sure of that. You've got to go on with your life the best way you can.
Why can't you just leave me alone, John? You don't know what it's like to watch your son die. I don't want to eat. I don't want to sleep. I really don't care if I live anymore. I wish you and the disciples would just leave me alone. Nothing matters anymore.
Oh, Mary, I'm sorry. It's just that I love you like my own mother. And you heard Jesus tell me to take care of you. I just don't like seeing you this way.
Oh, John, I appreciate your concern. And I love you like a son. Of all the disciples, it seemed that Jesus loved you the best. But these past 2 days have been almost unbearable.
Oh, Mary, what are we going to do? Jesus was my teacher, my friend, my Lord. And now he's dead.
Go ahead and cry, John. I'd join you, but I'm too tired to sleep, and I'm too sad to cry. Go ahead.
You are an amazing woman. I come in here to comfort you, and you end up comforting me. Jesus was very fortunate to have a mother like you.
No, John. I was fortunate to have a son like Jesus.
You know, Mary, I've learned so much these past 3 years with Jesus, but I'd like to know more about him. I'd like to know about his birth, his childhood, everything. Do you think you could talk about it?
I suppose I could. It might even help me to talk about him. Where do you want me to start?
Well, Jesus often said that God was his father, yet many of his enemies said that Joseph was. Surely you know the truth of that one.
How well I remember. I was just a young girl, still in my teens, betrothed to marry Joseph. And then an angel of the Lord appeared to me. I was absolutely terrified.
most highly favored Mary, the Lord is with you now. He'll be with you all the way. Yes, he's here right now, telling me just what to say. Listen, Mary, most highly honored Mary, 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 blessed art thou, dear Mary. Yes, he's here right now, telling me just what to say. Listen, Mary, most highly honored Mary, dear Mary.
Who is he? What is he? Oh, could he be an angel? And if he is an angel, whatever could he mean? Greetings, dear Mary. Congratulations, Mary. Oh, this is the most frightening thing that I have ever seen.
Mary, please don't be frightened, Mary. Mary, the Lord will bless you, Mary, for soon you will conceive, and in due time you'll have a son.
is very hard to understand. How can I have a baby? How can I have a son? I am the Virgin Mary. Are you sure that I'm the right one? How can this be, Gabriel? How can this be? I have never even known a man.
Mary, I know you must be confused, but listen, and this is how it will happen. The Spirit of the Lord God will come upon you, and the power of the Lord God will cause you to conceive and have a son. Because of this child shall be the Son of God himself. Remember, Mary, with God, nothing is impossible.
Behold, I am the Lord's servant. I am willing to receive all that you have said. Tonight the sky is filled with stars, stars, stars. I have never seen beauty in such abundance. Oh, and my heart has never beat with such a load of praise. If only I had the talent of King David, what a psalm I would sing for you this night. But my thoughts tumble over themselves as I think on today's news. The news that I, a lowly maiden, have found favor with you, you who formed dry land with the sweep of your hand, who parted the Red Sea with the breath of your nostrils. And yet I believe the truth of what the angel spoke. Miracle of miracles, that I shall be mother of the Messiah. But a twinge of sadness tugs at my heart, Lord, when I think of my own dear Joseph. He will not understand this wonder, Lord. He's too used to dealing with realities, the smell of sawdust and shavings, the rhythm of tireless planing, the strength of his own strong arms reshaping the cedars of Lebanon. Angels and visions and impossibilities are foreign stuff to my carpenter. And how shall I make him understand that I am virgin still, but with child? Oh, loving Lord, do me this one favor. Let Joseph believe. Make this miracle as real to him as oxen yokes and axe handles. Let him know that it is your hand, oh God, that you have done it. Almighty God, add to this miraculous news just one miracle more. Let Joseph believe.
That is amazing. So God himself is the father of Jesus. What did you tell Joseph?
Well, nothing at first. I was still afraid. When he found out later that I was going to have a baby, he was ready to call off the wedding. But an angel appeared to him and told him what had happened, just like I asked. And he was as excited as I was. Gabriel also told me another amazing thing. He said that my cousin Elizabeth was 6 months pregnant. I had to see this for myself because Elizabeth was barren, and I thought she was much too old to have children. So I made a trip to Judea to visit her. Elizabeth, Elizabeth, I must tell Elizabeth, I'll go to Judea and tell her the news. There's mother and father, but first there's Elizabeth. She's good at solving problems, so I'll get her views. Elizabeth, Elizabeth, I must tell Elizabeth, I'm off to Judea to tell her the news. I should tell Joseph, but first there's Elizabeth. I've got to tell my secret, there's no time to lose. so happy. I've never really felt so good in all my days. Mary, I knew it in a moment. Your son is destined for the
Jesus always had a special respect for John the Baptizer. It only makes sense that they were relatives. John was the son of Zacharias and Elizabeth. Wow, God was certainly honoring you both. Those must have been some exciting days for both of you.
Yes, those were exciting days, but it was also a very scary time. I faced a lot of ridicule and rejection because I was pregnant before I was married. The women in Nazareth had sharp tongues, and I was their favorite topic of discussion in those days. But through it all, I was wonderfully aware that the child I was carrying was very special. I knew from the angel that we were to name him Jesus, and that he would save his people from their sins.
Jesus spoke many times about saving the people from their sins. But those people who crucified him certainly weren't sinless. Did Jesus fail?
I'm not sure, John. There's still so much that none of us understand clearly.
Well, tell me more about his birth. I thought Jesus was born in Bethlehem, but you and Joseph were in Galilee?
That's right. Over 30 years ago, that's before you were even born, John, the Roman Emperor Augustus made a new tax law that required a census to be taken. Everyone in Israel had to return to their ancestral home to register for the census. Since both Joseph and I were of the house of David, we had to make a trip to Judea, to Bethlehem.
And you went while you were pregnant? I thought expectant women weren't supposed to be seen in public. And besides, isn't it unhealthy to travel much?
I had no other choice. The law was to be strictly enforced with no exceptions. Anyway, I'd already been the target for so much gossip and ridicule that it didn't really matter where I went. But you're right about one thing. It was a terribly difficult journey. I was 9 months pregnant and I couldn't walk, and riding that little burro was extremely uncomfortable. It seemed then that there was some evil force, evil influence trying to prevent me from having Jesus, some evil power.
Jesus spoke many times about our adversary, Satan. I'm sure he was doing everything he could to prevent the birth of Jesus.
I'm sure you're right, John. Anyway, after many days of that hard journey, we finally arrived in Bethlehem. I was tired, dirty, hungry, and my back was killing me. And all I could think about was a clean room with a soft bed. But I didn't even get that.
What happened?
Just a few more steps, Mary. We're almost there. There's got to be a vacant room here. I never thought all these other inns would be full. Imagine that. A descendant of King David, unable to get a room in the city of David. I didn't realize so many people would be here at this time. But a friend told me that this little inn is off the beaten path. Surely they will have a room.
I hope so, Joseph. I'm so tired. All I want is a clean bed, just to lay back on.
Hello? Anyone there?
What do you want?
Oh, shalom. I am Joseph of the house of David. And this is my wife, Mary. She's expecting a baby at any time.
Listen, buddy, everybody here is of the house of David. And I'm not blind. I can see she's expecting. I just hope you're not expecting to stay here because we're full. In fact, I have people sleeping in the doorways.
But you're our last chance. All the other inns are full too. My wife could have this baby tonight. Couldn't you ask someone inside to give up their room for her?
These people paid good money for their rooms. In fact, most of them paid more than the regular price. I'm not about to ask them to go in and get up and go someplace else. Now, why don't you two just go somewhere else and let's stop all this talk, because it's disturbing my guests.
Sir, I understand that all your rooms are full, and I wouldn't want you to ask any of your guests to leave. I just need a place to lie down. I noticed a stable on the way in where the animals are sheltered. Would you mind if we at least stayed there?
Well, it's not very clean, but I could throw down some new hay. Okay, you can stay there, but you'll have to pay the price of a regular room.
You're kidding. I'm not paying to stay in that stinky, dirty barn. Come on, Mary, let's try someplace else.
Joseph, there is no place else. Pay the kind man and let's stay here. After all, it will be a roof over our heads, and the hay will be soft enough for us to get some rest.
Well,
Please?
all right. But someone should report you for highway robbery.
Come on, I'll show it to you. You can take it or leave it.
what a night. I was so afraid. There was nobody there to help me except Joseph, and he wasn't much help. But the power of God was there, and everything went smoothly. I can still remember my first glimpse of that beautiful baby boy.
And think, on the night that the Son of God was born on earth, there was no one there to welcome him. Oh, except you and Joseph.
And 2 cows and 1 donkey. And come to think of it, even the animals seemed to sense that something special had happened. And we weren't alone for very long.
Oh, really?
Well, it wasn't long until we had some very interesting visitors. They weren't looking for me or for Joseph. They'd come to see Jesus.
Mary, I heard that something strange happened the day that you took Jesus to the temple to be dedicated. Do you recall what it was?
I'll never forget it. We went to the temple when Jesus was 8 days old. We burned the frankincense as an offering and presented 2 doves as a sacrifice. We didn't want to attract any attention, but people soon surrounded us like the smoke from the frankincense. First, a godly old man by the name of Simeon took Jesus and blessed him. And then a very old woman by the name of Anna said that he would be the means for the salvation of all of Israel. Although it was 33 years ago, I'll never forget what Simeon said. In fact, only in these past few days have I fully known what he was talking about.
to see Messiah. I'm waiting, expecting to see Messiah. I've tried to live righteous and holy, devoted to your will. You promised me one look at him, the sovereign newborn King. I'm waiting, expecting to see Messiah. Holy Spirit, speaking to me, you're leading me to the temple. Why am I going? What will I see there? Your presence is guiding my feet. There's the reason in that little child. Messiah glows all over his face. Now he's in my arms. I bless thee, my God. Let thy servant depart in peace. Mine eyes have seen your salvation, a light for revelation, and the glory of thy people, Israel. My eyes have seen your salvation, a light for revelation, and the glory of thy people, Israel. Mary, this child will often be rejected, spoken against, for truth he will reveal. Oh, but Mary, this child will also be accepted, the joyous truth to those who will believe. A sword shall pierce through your soul, the deepest thought shall be known. I've waited, expecting. Now I've seen Messiah. I've waited, expecting. Now I've seen Messiah.
That was a strange day. Other people seemed to be able to see that Jesus was such a special person. These past 33 years have shown just how special he was. But it's all over now.
Oh, Mary, I know how hard this must be on you. I've only known him for the past 3 years, and my spirit is crushed. Let's just try to hold on to the good memories that we have and try to forget about the way that it ended. Surely during these past 33 years, you have some beautiful memories.
You're so kind to help me remember these days when Jesus was first born, John. And you're right. I'm going to try to think about those wonderful days when he was just a baby. In fact, those were the most wonderful days of my entire life.
So even from the beginning, there were those who recognized Jesus as the Son of God.
Yes, there were. When Gabriel told me how special Jesus was, I often wondered if other people would really notice.
Well, tell me more about his childhood. What was he like?
Jesus was a beautiful, obedient child. We spent the first few years of his life in Egypt because an angel warned Joseph in a dream that Herod was going to try to kill Jesus. So we fled to Egypt until after Herod had died.
Oh, well, how did you live? I mean, what did you do for money?
We used the gold that the wise men brought us. In fact, as we were about to run out of gold, the angel came back to Joseph and told him that it was safe to return to Galilee. So we returned to Nazareth, and Jesus helped Joseph around the carpenter shop. He was so obedient, he never complained. He only really gave us one scare.
Oh, when was that?
When Jesus was 12 years old, we came to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. John, that would make it 21 years ago this week. Oh. We normally came with friends, and when we started back, we didn't see Jesus with us. We figured that he was with our friends, and so we didn't worry about it. But when we stopped that evening, and he wasn't with us, we were frantic with worry, and we hurried back to Jerusalem to look.
Where was he?
He was in the temple. When we found him, he was with a group of teachers, and they were actually amazed at his knowledge of the scripture. I started to blurt out who he was, but I was just so glad to see him, I just hugged him and hugged him. When I asked him later why he'd given us such a scare, he said, "I must be about my father's business." Of course, I looked at Joseph because we knew who his real father was.
Thank you, Mary, for telling me all that. You know, I remember the first time that I saw Jesus. My brother James and I, we were sitting on our father's boat, just mending our nets, and Jesus walked right up to the seashore. He stood there and stared straight at me. He said, "Come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Up until that time, all I'd ever wanted to be was a fisherman like my father and grandfather had been. But when he spoke, it was like nothing I'd ever heard before. Somehow I knew that this man was special, and that even though I didn't know where he was going, I had to follow him. I didn't even know his name, but I would soon come to learn that he was Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus, the Messiah.
Behold, the day will come when a king will rule in Zion. Out of Judah a scepter will arise. He's the star of Bethlehem, from the royal seed of David. He will come to rule forever from his throne.
The room was filled with people who had come to hear him speak. A simple man with calloused hands and dust upon his feet. 12 men were gathered round him like they knew him as a friend. But I had never seen him, though he said, to see. But when he spoke, I noticed he was staring into me. I whispered to a woman who was listening by my side, "Who is this man?" And these words she replied, "Yeshua HaMashiach, the image of I am, the mystery of heaven, come to earth as mortal man. Yeshua HaMashiach, the lion and the lamb, his eyes are warm and tender, but there's fire in his hand, in his hand." More than any other prophet is what's burned me deep inside, exposing from my heart and heart the truth I could not hide. For years I had been waiting for the Messiah yet to come, but long before I heard his name, I knew he was the one. Yeshua HaMashiach, the image of I am, the mystery of heaven, come to earth as mortal man. Yeshua HaMashiach, the lion and the lamb, his eyes are warm and tender, but there's fire in his hand, in his hand. There is fire in his hand, in his hand, in his
What are we going to do? This is the biggest wedding of the whole year. Everyone's here, even the governor. The wedding hasn't even begun yet, and we're already out of wine. We had just enough until you brought all your friends. Can you do something?
My Father is Jehovah, and he will provide.
Almighty, the God of Gilead, the rock of ages.
poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God.
Jesus, what are we going to do? There must be at least 5,000 people here, and it's after lunchtime. They're getting hungry. Andrew's done a little bit of checking, but all he's found is a little boy with 5 pieces of bread and a couple of fish. What are we going to do?
That is more than enough to feed these people. After all, I am the bread of life, and whoever comes to me will never be hungry again.
hard to believe all that actually happened. Jesus did so many miracles. He touched blind people and they'd be able to see. He touched people with leprosy and they were made whole and clean. He would cast demons out of people and they would be able to talk and to think normally. He even split the disciples up and sent us out in groups, healing people in His name. He even raised Lazarus from the dead after he'd been in the tomb for 4 days. It's sad there isn't someone here to do the same for him.
John, do you think Jesus knew that something was going to happen? He just seemed so sad at the Passover meal the other night.
Yeah, I noticed that too. He kept talking about how the bread was like His body, which was to be broken, and how the wine was like His blood. I can see now that he was talking about His crucifixion.
Where did you go after you left the upper room?
Well, we left the city and went across to the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus took most of the disciples with Him. He told them to stay in one spot. And then He took the rest of us on a little further into the garden. He wanted us to stay and to watch and to pray for Him. I saw Him walk on a little bit farther, and He threw Himself down beside this rock and He began to pray and to cry. He said, "Father, take this cup from me, but not what I want, but what You want." He kept saying that over and over. I hate to admit that I was so tired that I fell asleep. Jesus came and woke us up and told us how desperately He needed us to watch and to pray, but we failed Him so bad. Oh, if we had only stayed awake, maybe this whole nightmare wouldn't have happened.
No, John, don't blame yourself. We all would have acted differently if we'd have known something was going to happen. What happened next?
Well, Jesus came and woke us up again. I looked up at Him. Oh, at first I thought I was seeing things, but it looked like Jesus was sweating blood. After that, He went to pray again, and after a few minutes, the real action started. like a pack of scared dogs. I was afraid they were going to arrest me too, but they were only interested in Jesus. I soon found Peter, and we got up enough courage to sneak into the courtyard of the high priest.
What had they done with Jesus?
Oh, they had it all set up real nice. The entire Sanhedrin was there, all in the middle of the night. We could look in from the courtyard and see that they had Jesus bound and on trial. They kept asking him questions, and every now and then a soldier would slap him across the face.
But that's not fair. It's illegal to have a trial at night.
There wasn't much that was fair that night. Oh, I just so much wanted to say something, but I was too afraid they would recognize me and put me on trial too. Well, someone did recognize Peter.
What did he do?
He denied that he even knew Jesus. He even made an oath. Oh, I couldn't believe my ears. We thought that Peter was the strongest of us all. I mean, we weren't surprised to see Judas leading that mob to arrest Jesus, but for Peter to deny him. Oh, he even made a boast at the Passover meal that he would never forsake Jesus. Jesus just looked at him and said that Peter would deny him 3 times before the rooster crowed that morning. Peter about jumped when he heard that rooster crow. After that, he ran off into the night.
That whole day was a nightmare. I kept hoping that Pilate or Herod would order the Sanhedrin to let Jesus go. But the chief priest had made sure that all the people would shout for Barabbas. One minute I was praying that they would release Jesus, and the next minute all the people were screaming for him to be crucified. Oh, when Pilate turned Jesus over to those Roman soldiers to be crucified, I knew it was all over.
You know what I don't understand is why Jesus didn't defend himself. I mean, there had been times before when people had tried to seize him and kill him, but he had always gotten away. That day, he didn't argue, he didn't struggle, he didn't resist at all. He told Peter while we were in the garden that he could call down 42,000 angels to help him. I kept waiting for him to do something so that he wouldn't have to go through all that shame and suffering.
I know what you mean. When they placed that crown of thorns upon his head, and they kept beating him with that stick when he was blindfolded. Oh. And he didn't cry out or try to stop them.
You know, I caught his eye when they were tying him up to whip him. And it looked like he was smiling at me, as if he were saying that he knew what he was doing and that he had everything under control. But when those Roman soldiers started whipping him, I knew they were the ones in control.
Son, look at your mother. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross. Yeah, come down, King. Father, into your hands, I commit my spirit. Into the hands of his Father and Spirit, into the hands of the Father.
can't get that scene out of my mind. There he was, just hanging there in so much pain. I couldn't even recognize his face. And he still spoke to me and asked you to take care of me. And those people, those horrible people, they were shouting and jeering at him. And he still asked God to forgive them.
He spoke so much about love. Even to the very end, he loved the people that were killing him.
I think now I'm beginning to understand what Simeon was talking about when he said, "A sword shall pierce through your heart because of Jesus." It has, John. It has. When they nailed his feet and his hands, it went in my heart. And when they shoved that spirit inside, it went in my spirit, John. And it's twisting and it's still there. When will it go away, John? Ask God to take the pain away.
Mary, I don't know if it ever will go away.
Thank you, John. I knew a time would come when you would comfort me. Jesus said so. Is the sun up yet?
Just about. Well, are you going somewhere?
I want to go and finish anointing his body. He was buried on the Sabbath, and so they buried him very quickly, and he wasn't given a proper burial. I heard that Pilate has guards stationed outside the tomb. I hope they'll let me finish. It's the least I can do. 33 years ago, the wise men brought us gold, frankincense, and myrrh. We used the gold in Egypt, and we burned the frankincense when he was blessed at the temple. I always wondered what I'd use the myrrh for. Myrrh is a burial spice. Perhaps when the wise men brought it, they knew this day would come. I didn't. Do you want to go with me to the tomb?
Yes. I know the way. Come on, let's go. Mary Magdalene, what are you talking about?
I went to the tomb before daybreak, and the stone was rolled aside, and the soldiers were laying around like they were dead, and the body of Jesus was gone. Somebody had stolen his body.
Why, those animals. First they've murdered him, and now they've stolen the evidence. Hell will not be hot enough for people like that. Oh, come on, let's go. Magdalene. Do you realize what this all means? Jesus had all this planned. Oh, so many times he told the disciples that he was to die and be raised the third day. But we never understood what he meant. Now it is all so clear. When the Romans were putting him to death, he really was in control.
Jesus said that he would lay down his life, that no man would take it from him. No wonder he didn't resist when they were crucifying him. He was the one the prophet Isaiah was talking about when he said he was wounded for our transgression and bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed.
You know, Jesus offered himself at the same time the Passover lamb was offered. That's it. Jesus offered himself for our protection. Oh, don't you remember when John the Baptizer said, "Behold, the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world."
Jesus is the Lamb of God.
Yes. The Lamb was sacrificed for the forgiveness of sin.
Jesus forgave our sins.
Jesus didn't fail, but it was all part of the Father's plan.
John, Mary, I haven't felt this wonderful since that blessed night in Bethlehem 33 years ago. Just to know that he's alive takes away all the pain and suffering I've felt these past 2 days. I want to go and tell everyone, come and know him. Come and worship him. John, my son is alive. He's alive.
Yes, he is alive. But better than that, God's Son is alive. Come on, let's go tell everybody.